Hello, my name is Brian and welcome to Overland Calling. Are you getting ready for a big overlanding trip or thinking about planning one and you're just getting overwhelmed? Well, hey, I got some tips and tricks that might be able to help you out. So, there's a lot that goes into it, but it's not brain surgery. If you just follow a couple simple methods and just kind of check things off on your to-do list, take them off in bite-sized chunks, makes it very doable. So don't let yourself get overwhelmed. We're going to walk through some of the steps that I use and that I've developed over 4 years of doing this to be able to go through and plan a trip. Break this down into a couple different stages. You've got planning. That's where you're going to basically get all the details of your plan, all that good stuff. Too easy. Purchasing. Make sure you've got all the stuff that you need for wherever you're going and however you're going to be spending your time there, i.e. usually overlanding, camping. Then you're going to pack. Make sure that all the stuff you want to bring is actually going to fit into your car. Then after that, you're going to have prepare. That's where you're just going to, take care of getting everything ready for the trip, including yourself. Last but not least, practice. Because while you can watch YouTube videos and all that stuff, there's nothing like getting out there in a relatively safe environment and practicing your craft a little. All right, let's hop into it. We're going to start off with planning. Anybody that knows me probably just laughed when they heard me say that I'm going to do a video on planning a trip. To the outside world, it kind of seems like I really don't do any planning at all. That's not exactly true, though. I just plan a little bit different than everybody else. So I'm going to walk you through the steps that I do. Pick and choose whatever suits you best, and hopefully it helps you out. Now, whenever I was a kid, I didn't have social media, all that good stuff that we got now. It was basically go out your door and go play outside till the street lights came on. And with that, my imagination would run wild. I'd be going on some different adventure every day. And that's kind of like what I'm planning for my overland trips, except I'm old now. I don't have that kid imagination superpower. I got to do a little bit more to get things set up. So that's how I do my planning, is I basically try and build in all the elements from a fiction novel or a fantasy novel just into my story. And then I just start turning the pages. Sounds a little crazy, I know, right? All right, hey, let's walk through it. So let's pick a fantasy novel. So you've got this magical, immersive world that you're in. Well, now I don't envision myself going into some elven forest where trees are going to talk to me or anything like that. But I live in the city. And I'll tell you what, stepping into the remote forests or deserts, that is a completely different world. Next up, fantasy novels always got this big mythical creatures and stuff like that. Well, I don't have any dragons or unicorns that I'm expecting to see out there, but I'll tell you what, for me, living out there with bear and deer and marmots and you name it, hey, pretty fantastic creatures out there. So that's good enough for me. All right, so bam, there's my magical world. Next up, for the plot. Well, gonna make yourself the main character. That main character is gonna have some sort of struggle or challenge. And I'll tell you what, life on the trail is not easy. Those struggles and those challenges come. Next thing, you're gonna have conflict. You're gonna have to overcome things. For example, obstacles, weather. In my case, your car breaking down in Topeka, Kansas. That's why I'm in a hotel right now making this video and not on some beautiful mountaintop meadow. And when you're out there, you've only got your skills and the things you brought with you to be able to get yourself out of any situation. So the stakes are high. And of course, there's character growth. I'll tell you what, on these adventures, like overcoming the obstacles, being out there, going places I never thought I could go or get to, and make it back safely, that builds my confidence like you cannot believe. I come back off these trips not just thinking I can take on the world. I pretty much know I can take almost anything the world has to throw at me. Still think this sounds like a load of crap? Well, do me a favor. Think about some of your best trips. Go ahead, take a second, pause the video. Did they have some of these elements in it that built that story for you? Oh, hey, cool. You're still here. All right, let's keep going. We got all the plot items in the world for our magical adventure and all that good stuff, but let's hop out of fantasy and let's hop into reality real quick. Because you are not the author of this story. You're going to set the different plot items in place, but you aren't writing this story page by page. You're going to be coming up with life, figuring stuff out, working things out while you're out there on the trail. So you got to have some limits in place. Stay safe out there. You don't want to get too far past your abilities that, an adventure turns into something terrifying. First up is going to be your ability and your skills. You've got, stuff you know how to do. Hopefully you've been building this up over time, starting small, getting bigger. Your ability to, know how to do different stuff and the skills you have, the practice and experience you have doing those things, that's going to be one of the biggest deciding factors in if this adventure is going to be a success. Next up, let's not forget time. Time's going to dictate a lot for you, especially if you're still working, you're going to have, you're taking vacation, you have to get there, then you have to have your time there, and then you have to get back, and you got to get back to work. So don't want to be late for that. Keep time in mind. Of course, money. Now, overlanding itself is relatively inexpensive. You're pretty much doing gas and food. Now, of course, there's all the gear that goes into overlanding. Here's where I'm going to say you can choose your budget level. You can do this without breaking the bank, or you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just depends if you want to be, rolling around in your daily driver, or if you want to be out there in your earth roamer. Next up, we got physical limitations. For example, myself. I'm over 50 years old. I used to be an avid backpacker, but 3 hernia operations later, this guy don't backpack anymore. Bought a Jeep, problem solved. So keep your physical limits in mind whenever you're doing these trips. I also go out solo a lot, so I kind of keep my crazy off-road stuff in check. I want to be able to make sure, to the best of my ability anyway, that I'm staying within the limits of my off-roading skills, my vehicle, and that I'm not going to run the risk of breaking anything. Essentially, all it boils down to, I just kind of look at an obstacle and I just trust that feeling I get in my gut. Like, do I think this is a good idea? If not, hey, I'll turn around all day long. And let's not forget another limit. You got the conditions out there. If you're going to elevation, you got to worry about, temperature swings, stuff like that. Of course, you got rain, snow, trail conditions, wildfires, you name it. Just kind of keep your environment in mind and make sure that you're set up to basically stay in the safe limits to be able to survive. Don't go into Colorado in the middle of winter with no sleeping bag or anything to keep you warm. All right, so we got our story elements we got in place. We got the limits that we're going to keep in mind to keep ourselves safe out there. Let's start looking at the planning philosophy. So planning can take a lot of time. It can take as much time as you want to put into it. But I've found through my experience that a lot of that time planning is usually wasted because I scrap my plan 40 times before I even get out there and do my first overnight camp. I got a quote that I always try and keep in mind. No plan survives contact with the enemy. What that means basically is no matter how great your plan is, the second you put it into motion and you're out there in the unknown, your plan's going to need to change. So just keep that in mind. And I got another philosophy. 70% takes 10%. What that means is to put 70% of a plan in place and get it together only takes you about 10% of the time. That 30%, the details, that's where you can really bog yourself down. And that's what really usually eats up most of the time. If you just take care of the 70% big hitters, got your items, know kind of where you're going, you can figure out a lot of that stuff whenever you're closer in. Because there's going to be so many variables and unknowns, there's a pretty good chance you're going to completely replan this thing every single day. Once you see what you got staring at you on the road in front of you, you're going to have to replan all the time. So I don't let myself get too wrapped up in the details. It saves a ton of time. So I call this last minute planning, I'll call it micro planning. Because you're going in and you're adjusting off the things that you're seeing around you. And you're replanning and still keeping your goals in mind all the time, which honestly, my only real goal on these trips is just to have one heck of an adventure. So keep that in mind as you're doing your micro planning. So for example, if you come up to an intersection, you look down there and you think, man, that looks pretty cool, but it's not on my route. Hey, don't be afraid to turn those wheels and take the road less traveled. Next up, say you come to a campsite, big epic campsite. You had no idea it was there. You get there like, man, this is awesome. But it's only midday. I need to be heading down on the trail to get to my next campsite. You know what? If that campsite's really awesome, who's to say you can't stop middle of the day, take some time and really enjoy it and just make that your brand new campsite. Don't be afraid to take what's there in front of you and make it yours. Reform that plan. The goal of overlanding for me is that feeling of adventure. Now, I need a place to type into my GPS to take me there, but everything else, I'm just kind of building along the way. Now, for this trip, I chose Colorado. It's got remote, wide open spaces, beautiful areas, tons of unknown, challenging trails, and it's also, I've done some research. There are some places there I want to go see in person. It's the perfect backdrop for my epic overland fantasy novel. One of the things I keep in mind is not just the stuff I'm going to do in Colorado, but the stuff that I want to do along the way. In my case, I'm coming from Virginia. That's 1,500 miles. I don't want to waste that if I don't have to. So one of the things I do is that very first night, I try and make it somewhere where I can just do a quick test camp, just to kind of get my mind in the feeling of being out there again. I'm also testing my gear, making sure I remember to bring everything, and just kind of knocking the rust off some of my camping skills. From there, I'm hitting up Google Maps and I'm just kind of looking at cool places to stay along the way, things I want to do, maybe friends I want to see, stuff like that. So, talked a lot of the big picture items and stuff like that, but when you're out there, you do need to do some detailed planning. I usually do this the night before, or if I forget, I do it when I'm drinking my morning coffee. Now, for navigation and stuff while I'm out there on the trail, I used to use paper maps long ago, but now I've got the different apps and I download and I use my phone and my iPad to make sure I don't get lost. I'm no expert on these different apps, but I'll tell you, the ones I use are Trails Off Road because it's got the best trail guides and stuff that I've found anywhere else. I know pretty much almost exactly what I'm going to be up against, and I know if my vehicle can do it. The downside of it is that it doesn't give me every possible trail out there. A lot of times I'm in national forest, for example, and that's when I'm really turning to Gaia because it's going to give me all the trails. Downside is it doesn't give me anything on specific obstacles or let me know how hard the trails are. I kind of combine those two. Now, Everybody out there seems to be using Onyx, and I'll tell you what, like, I've never used it, but I did just download it. I'm going to try it this trip and kind of see how it stacks into my system. And there's also things like the Garmin Tread and stuff like that. Now, I am not an expert on any one of these apps, so I don't really feel qualified to teach you how to use them. But what I can do, I can put links in the video description. I'll route you to some of the people that I've found that have helped me learn the applications that I'd recommend. So first off, we got Paul from Mountain Man Chronicles. He's got some great stuff on the Garmin Tread. Next, there's Matt with Ozark Overland Adventures. Ton of stuff on Gaia. More stuff than I could even hope to even remember, let alone show anybody. Told you I just downloaded Onyx. I've also been doing some classes with Adam from Bantha Overland, and put that video link in there as well. And then there's Dewey from Colorado Mall Crawlers. It's got a great video on trails off-road, and it's also got a comparison with Onyx off-road as well. So those are in the video description if you want to check them out. So the best advice I can give on planning your road trip in a nutshell is pick a place that's going to be that magical environment for you. And then focus on the different elements that are going to make up your adventure. Don't get too wrapped up in the details and stuff. You can take care of that when you're going. Just make sure that you're always planning towards the adventure, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's really what it's all about. Also, own your plan. Don't let it own you. Don't get so wrapped up into having to tick off every single box on that plan. Focus on how it's making you feel. Make sure that you're getting what you want out of it. If for some reason you get behind schedule because you stayed at that epic camp an entire day instead of just overnight, hey, who's to say that's a bad thing? Maybe you won't get to see everything that you had on your list, but is it really a bad thing that you have to go back and go on another adventure to go finish out those items? All right, so that's going to wrap up planning. Now, next up, we got purchasing. This video is not about selling you crap. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to put a single link for anything to buy in here. When we're talking about purchasing, I just mean make sure that you have what you need for the environment that you're going to. There are some items that I always make sure to bring with me though. That's my safety gear. I'm going to go over those in kind of detail just because I think it's just great advice. So first off, for safety, I always carry some way to communicate with the outside world in case things go wrong and I need to call for help. I've got, of course, my cell phone, which hardly ever works out there, by the way. Starting to come up with satellite communications. I don't really trust that yet. I'm going to let it develop a little bit longer before I decide that that's going to be my emergency communications. Till then, I roll out with Zoleo for an emergency satellite communicator. I've also got Starlink. So some way to communicate with the outside world and call for help. Now, next up is going to be self-recovery gear. If you're 30 miles into the middle of nowhere, you do not want to call up a tow truck, and there may not be anybody rolling by. For me, I go out solo almost every time, so I make sure I've got a winch, I've got a tow strap, I've got a tree saver, this thing you put around the tree to make sure that your winch line doesn't cut into it and kill it if you're using it as a winch point. I've also got a couple soft shackles and a pulley wheel in case I need to change direction. Nothing crazy, but I definitely recommend having some recovery gear with you. Oh, and traction boards. Never actually used them, but I carry them with me all the time just in case. I made a list so I don't forget everything. In addition to that, I've got my first aid gear. The Band-Aid, stuff like that, as well as, some more advanced first aid stuff, and I've been trained how to use it. Also got a fire extinguisher, just in case something catches fire, I need to put it out. I carry bear spray. It's pretty good against those two-legged varmints as well. Then, of course, I've got food, water, shelter. Don't forget bedding. Bedding's important. You need something to keep the rain off you, but you also need, sleeping bags and stuff to stay warm out there. Clothing. So make sure you bring clothing that's going to keep you comfortable in those hotter or cooler temperatures, depending on where you're going. Hygiene items, self-explanatory, brush your teeth, clean up. Don't forget, you got to go to the bathroom while you're out there. Have a plan for that. Once you got those basics covered, though, everything else is just kind of comfort gear. Not things that you need, but things that you might want. And those are going to be super personalized. Highly recommend taking short trips and just kind of figuring out what makes you comfortable at camp. Figure out your style. And then start doing research and looking at things you want to take with you. And if you've got time to build it up, you don't have to buy brand new things. Facebook Marketplace and other places like that are packed full of used gear that people are offloading because they didn't use it. So keep that in mind. You don't have to break the bank. Keep your budget kind of under control. It can go crazy real fast. Also, what I'd recommend doing is taking short trips in the beginning. That way you figure out while you're out there, like, oh, I need to bring this. For example, I've repeatedly forgotten my pillow. I can't tell you how many times. Now I can roll up a sweatshirt and that kind of gets me by, but if I'm going on a long overlanding trip, I don't want to be sleeping on a sweatshirt night after night after night. So I bought myself my own dedicated pillow because I can't seem to remember to grab the one off my bed at home. I'd recommend getting things, if you're going to be doing an overland style adventure, that's usually you're traveling during the day, you're going to set up camp in the evening, then you're going to break down camp the next morning and take off again. So make sure your gear is kind of focused around the setup and teardown time, because when you get off the trail, you're probably going to be a little tired. You don't want to be spending an hour setting up camp. Also, when you wake up in the morning, now you're itching to get back on the trail again, and you don't want to spend an hour breaking down camp and packing everything up just to be able to go. We got purchase taken care of now. On to pack. I highly recommend you start with the must-haves. Do a test pack in your car. Figure out how much room you have before you go looking at the Gucci items you want to bring with you, because you're going to be limited on space, most likely. I know I budget space like it's gold. So one of the things you could do, just pack things up. Do that test pack, and then figure out how much room you have. Start adding items in that you may want, kind of in the order. Like for me, it's comfortable camp chair, comfortable camp table, and then it just kind of goes down the list from there. But make sure you can pack everything in your car, have it organized, or you're never going to be able to find anything. You don't want to be, if it's an item that you're going to be getting to every single time you make camp, don't put it at the bottom where you have to dig through everything to get to it. So organize it well. Make sure things are secure. You're going to be rocking and rolling as you're going down the trail. Excuse me. Make sure that you're not going to have stuff flying around everywhere. What else we got? Oh, yes. Your vehicle has a weight limit. I highly recommend you know what that weight limit is and that you stay under it. Because when you're out there on the trail, you're already stressing your vehicle out. If you take it over its max weight that it's designed to haul, and you're adding bumps and everything else from the trail in there, that's going to put a lot of stress on your vehicle. So stay below your vehicle weight limits. So pack, check. Now we've got prepare. Prepare is getting your vehicle maintenance done. If there's something that you need to research, maybe you need to build up some knowledge on, perfect thing to prepare ahead of time. You're also going to want to, let's see, I mentioned recovery gear as things to bring. Part of that preparation is going to be learning how to use that recovery gear, because you don't want the first time you're trying to figure out how to use your winch to be when you're hanging off the side of a mountain and needing to hook your winch up to get the heck out of there. Highly recommend you learn how to plug and patch a tire as well as change your tire, because whenever you're out there on the trail, it's going to be much harder to do those things. If you practice, say, changing a tire on nice level pavement, it's going to make your life much easier whenever you're out there on a trail, who knows how level, trying to jack it up, find all your stuff, and actually change out your tire. Don't forget all that gear that you're bringing. Make sure you know how to use it. Another great reason to take those short little camp trips is because you can learn how to use your gear. You can also, of course, watch YouTube videos. Things get really desperate, you can break out an instruction manual usually and figure it out. But you don't want to be out there in the wilderness. Sun's already gone down, you're tired, and you just want to, get to sleep, and you're here trying to figure out how to set up your tent. Get a couple practice runs in, prepare for it in advance. Oh, okay. Now, navigation apps, or whatever method that you're using so that you don't get lost, make sure that you know how to use them before you go out there. Get some practice in with them. Then we've got off-roading. Hey, if you're planning on doing something that's a little more than, say the forest gravel road or something like that, go out and prepare for off-roading. Kind of learn skills, tire placement, and things like that in advance in a safer environment than, 30 miles in the middle of the wilderness. Great way to do that is off-road parks and going out with your experienced friends. Both awesome ways to learn the craft in the beginning. Oh, here's a big one. If you've got a four-wheel drive vehicle, know how your four-wheel drive works. I know it sounds kind of dorky, but if it's your first time going out especially, open that owner's manual. Learn how to engage your four-wheel drive, how to take it out of four-wheel drive, and any other fancy gadgets and gizmos you got on there, traction control, you name it. Learn that stuff before you get out and you actually have to use it. And of course, before any long trip, you should always be taking care of your vehicle maintenance, changing your fluids if you need to, change that air filter. Don't forget your cabin air filter, diff fluid, transmission fluid, you name it. Just make sure your vehicle maintenance is up to date and that it's in its peak condition to go out there and beat the heck out of it. Airing your tires down, that's pretty easy. You just kind of let it out, but make sure that you're letting it down to, I don't know, for me, I go with about 18 to 20 PSI. But don't forget to practice airing them up again. And also, if you've never used your air pump, this is a great time and pick a nice safe place like your driveway, air your tires down, and then use your air pump to practice airing them back up again. Just kind of make sure you're in the hang of it and you aren't out in the middle of nowhere. Figure out that your air pump that you got that you thought would work fine actually doesn't work. Had a buddy of mine that learned that lesson the hard way. Luckily we were out together, so I just let him use my air pump, but his air pump crapped out by tire 2. So I don't know that I'd recommend those Harbor Freight air pumps too much. And last but not least, we talked about buying some sort of emergency satellite communicator, some way to call in for help. Get some practice in with that and just make sure you know how to do it. Because if you ever have to use it, it's going to be an emergency and you don't want that to be your first time. Know how to use your emergency communication device, whatever it may be, and don't be the guy that's hanging off the side of a mountain with a broken leg trying to figure out and read an instruction manual for how to use your satellite comms. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap up Prepare. It is probably one of the cheapest things to do. It does take the most time, so start getting this ready in advance. Start preparing your skills and your abilities, learning how to use your gear, making sure your vehicle's ready, all that good stuff. It doesn't typically cost a lot of money, but it pays off in dividends. Right after Prepare, check. Now we've got Practice. I broke this out separately from Preparing because Preparing's more of just like, watching videos, reading manuals, learning how to do it, maybe some light practice. But Practice, when I'm talking about it, is going out and taking those trips and like getting out there, actually putting your skills to the test in a relatively safe environment, not someplace too crazy far out. Get somewhere safe where you can practice. But I'm not going to do a talking head video over that because, well, you got to be sick of listening to me talk by now. I'm going to put a link in here to the video on practicing and just kind of the stuff that I do to get ready for a big overlanding trip practice-wise. So I hope this helps you out. Until next time, enjoy the ride.